All right, we are back here on the podcast, getting ready for our NBA off-season special here, as we do every year. Get you ready for the crazy week and a half of action coming in the association. With me, as always, is coming tradition to break it down the podcast. The hosts of the Starting Up podcast, Tom Bocchino. If you're watching on YouTube, he's in the red with a blurred background, and Sean Rowe is wearing his UConn national champ shirt. You can actually see his background. So, welcome, fellas. How are you?
It's great to see you, Mike. I mean, the tough part is I have to decide which one I want to wear. There's 2024, there's 2023. I could go 14, 11. It's tough.
Yeah, you got choices.
I do.
He probably thought of that joke at about 7 o'clock this morning.
No,
He
pretty
picked
easy.
he picked the shirt. He's like, which shirt like am I gonna like rub your faces in with the
Hmm.
this year?
Well, you got all your St. John's championship shirts, right?
Scumbag. Scumbag. We're coming though. We're coming. Slick Rick's here. Top
Yeah.
five team right
Mhm.
now.
You didn't buy the Big East championship shirt this year, Tom?
We only hang real banners in this house.
Yeah, I'd say St. John's don't really have many real banners.
They have well, they went to a Final Four, I guess. What was that,
I
86 or 85? But I mean, I guess that's the closest thing to a banner we have. We're like the Colts,
yeah
hanging that. What was that? The division, whatever it was, runner up or something.
yeah
So good.
yeah. So let's get to the NBA, which is why we're here. Like I talked about the finals on top of the pod, so we don't need to rehash that here. So off season mode here. What are your big headlines you're looking forward to keep an eye on this off season?
Tom, you want to start?
Sure. For me, it's obviously locally, it's the Knicks and what their moves they're going to make at head coach. Um, Kind of seems like they didn't really have much of a plan there aside from begging Jason Kidd, which Dallas doesn't seem like they want to do it. Although reports are it's still a possibility. And then around the league, it's do these big money players stick around like your Miles Turners and whatnot? And obviously that's on the free agent front. And then we're gonna have a flurry of trades here, and we just had a massive sale of the Los Angeles Lakers to Magic Johnson and his group owning the Dodgers. So, a lot going on in the NBA right now.
Uh,
Yeah, for me, it's the Celtics and how they're going to shed money. I think they're a team that you have to pay attention to. Obviously, they know they're not going to have Jason Tatum in all likelihood for the whole season. They're getting calls on on Brown rather, and I don't think they're going to trade him. But I do think Holiday's gone. I think Porzingis is gone, so they're going to shed salary. It's going to be interesting to see where those guys go. And obviously, like to pick up Tom's point, the flurry of trades. I don't think free agency is going to be that wild this year. The names are not crazy. Some of the names are more interesting because just simply the name, but not really the situation. So really, it's going to be about what stars get traded and where they go. And I think Phoenix right now is staring down the barrel at realizing a harsh reality that they're not going to get anything close to what they want to for KD. So I think those are obviously going to be the moves that we pay the most attention to. And I think draft night has a chance to be pretty crazy with teams trying to trade back into the lottery and recoup some assets as well.
yeah, let's start locally with the Knicks here, and obviously when Tom and I talked after the Knicks season ended before the finals, we did not have it in our mind that Tom Thibodeau would be gone. He is gone,
I
and
think I got fired the day after we spoke.
yep, literally, we spoke on Monday. He got fired on Wednesday.
Doesn't age well.
Yeah. So anyway, this happens here. Like it does not seem like they had an actual plan for a head coach, apart from we don't want Thibodeau, and we'll just like ask everybody under the sun to see who we can actually get in the building here. So Tom, I'll start with you. Who ends up getting this job here, assuming that Jason Kidd doesn't cause enough of a ruckus to get himself out of Dallas?
Um, Personally, I think Mike Brown might get the job. I read that he had a really good interview 2 days ago, and he's a guy who he's an offensive coach. And let's face facts, the way the team is built right now, this is more of an offensive team. I think no matter what you do, you're going to be in the middle of the pack defensively, and he's a creative offensive mind, and he had the most success with those Kings teams. And when they fired him, let's face it, it was bullshit anyways. He shouldn't have been fired. He was coming off a coach of the year. So I really would like to see a Mike Brown in there. And he's coached a lot in this league as an assistant on some championship teams, as well as a lot of teams that went to the championship early on in his career. So he's got a lot of experience. I would be really happy with a Mike Brown over trading picks for Kidd or something like that.
Yeah, Sean, any other names you see in mind for this?
Yeah, I think Tom's right on with Mike Brown for all the reasons that he said. It just makes sense. He's a really good fit. I think you could look at Taylor Jenkins. Obviously, he had a lot of success in Memphis, and he's a coach that has some good pedigree and is somebody that's had success again in a market similar to Mike Brown. In a market that didn't see a lot of success very often. And obviously, you look back and having to deal with the amount of injuries they had to deal with, all the stuff with John Morant, both injuries, off the court stuff, on the court stuff. There's been rumblings that Jaren Jackson Jr. is a target for the Knicks, so you could bring in Taylor Jenkins, who coached him before. I think that's a name to look for, but I don't think they're going to go down the Frank Vogel route, even though I'm a Frank Vogel fan. I think he got shafted, and after winning a championship with the Lakers in the bubble, they used him as the scapegoat. Phoenix did the same. Phoenix is on about its seventh straight new head coach now. And I still think they could look at the former assistant there. The name is deceiving me right now.
Johnny
Uh,
Bryant.
Johnny Bryant, yeah. So I think they could look at him. I just don't think the Knicks are a situation where you want to bring in a first year coach. I think this is a team that's ready to take that next step. That's the whole reason you got rid of Thibodeau, right? So if you're trying to take that next step, do it with somebody with a little bit more success, pedigree, history, and I think Mike Brown's the right guy.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting situation here. I do think if they wanted Johnny Bryant, it would have been done already, considering they're the
Mhm.
opening in the league right now, and he's like still like in Cleveland as assistant coach here. I feel
I
like
think we could look at the firing of Tibbs now as more of a coincidence, being so close to the Johnny Bryant news coming out. Because you texted me at first, and it made complete sense. Where it was like, oh, they want Bryant, but now it's like they could have signed him every day since.
yeah, they haven't even asked for an interview yet because I think they're trying to see how high they can go before they see like. 'Cause I think that Sean's right. They don't want a first time head coach here, and like I think if they walk out as like Mike Brown, Taylor Jenkins duo, and neither one of them press them, I think they expand a little bit.
Yeah, they've reached out to like every team in the league asking to interview their current head coach. So maybe they'll move on to college after this. Maybe they'll go to Europe. I don't know.
Which, by the way, guys, I want to ask you, like, does this feel really sloppy to you? Like, just calling all these different teams asking for permission to speak. And, like, it sounds like they've kind of been the butt of the joke around league circles, and executives are like, are you freaking kidding? Like, it really shows to me that they truly just wanted Thibodeau gone, didn't have a real plan B or a replacement plan in place, because this seems to me like it's much more about getting rid of Thibodeau than having somebody lined up to replace Thibodeau. But it just seems really sloppy and messy from my vantage point.
Yeah, this 100% to me feels like like we like it would have taken like getting to the NBA finals and like winning the title for Thibodeau to keep his job,
Sorry.
right? They're gone.
Yeah, and I think to me too, man, like I'm looking at overall, right? Like it just was a bad situation. It sounds like, certain players and key members of that team didn't like what they were doing at all. Not practicing late game situations, which, showed itself later in the playoffs and all that. But I hope that it's not the Mikal Bridges and the Karl Anthony Towns voices that are resonating the most, because when you hear from Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson, it sounded like they were huge Tibbs guys. So I would hope that this decision was made, with the blessing of those guys, because if they were Tibbs advocates and they got rid of him anyway, now you're starting to piss off your star player there, who obviously we know his father is a key member of that coaching staff, and there's some rumblings about that dynamic as well. But to me, it was like, hey, we don't even care who we get. We'll call around other teams. We don't care if this makes us look bad, but there's no way, shape, or form can we have Thibodeau back.
Yeah, and Thomas, it feels to me like that and it seems like everything you read to, like, feel like there's no like sense of urgency here because they're looking at this like, okay, we're the only opening. If we'll might as well just see, like maybe, we call up the Mavericks. They sure give us two picks for Jason Kidd, or we'll call like, they haven't done this yet, but maybe we'll call the Heat and say, hey, does Spoelstra want to leave? Like, I feel like they're like they're content being laughed at in the case that they like find a gold nugget in the pile of dirt that they're searching around in.
Well said. And I think at first for them, at first I think they thought they were going to have a lot more success with Jason Kidd, and their plan kind of blew up in their face. And it's one of those things where, You make a decision like this and there's zero going back. And it's at the point now where you're like, fuck it. Like, I just missed the Uber at the casino at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm just going to go back to the desk. I'm going to get the cheapest room they have and I'm going to take another 400 out and just say, fuck it. Like, I'm going to get wasted tonight and I don't care who sees because I've not already been too late and I miscalculated my hand and now I'm here.
Yeah,
This is just yeah.
I felt like this is. I thought you were going with the analogy, like, okay, like I'm $300 in the red, like on the craps table, like, but like since I missed an Uber, I'm gonna go get another 300 and just and put it all on, ride it all on black.
I mean, yeah, you could.
Tom's just speaking from personal experience.
Yeah,
That's
for
okay.
me, this is more just the Knicks misreading the situation, like I've done before, where it's like, oh yeah, like there's gonna be plenty of Ubers, and then 3 o'clock in the morning rolls around, and none of the Ubers want to drive 30 minutes in the other direction, and now it's just like, well, fuck it, I already screwed up. Like I don't care who sees me screw up at this point.
Yeah,
You got to get this hire right though, man, because the thing is that like I think the Knicks, from a talent standpoint, are going to be on the short list of teams to contend for the Eastern Conference Championship next year, as long as everybody's healthy. But the whole point of getting rid of Thibodeau, who literally was 2 wins away from taking you to an NBA Finals, like you have to now. It's such a high bar to set, right? So you better get this right. And now the next guy coming in has to at least get to a game 7. Like that's the level we're at if we're going to be judging them
A hundred
intelligently. And
percent.
I lived this, Mike, Tom and I talked about this briefly on our podcast, but I lived this when the Nets fired Kenny Atkinson and they brought in Steve Nash after a hiring, after a coaching search. And, you know, you thought that he was going to be perfect for a team of superstars, and he wasn't. And he was clearly outcoached against a lot of his counterparts. And when you're playing teams of your caliber, which the Knicks are going to do, you want to have somebody who's been in those trenches before. And if you don't get this hire right, we could be looking back on this. I've used this term on our pod, but a watershed moment in New York Knicks history. You're either going to take that next step to a true title contending team, or you're going to fall way back. And we know in the NBA, things happen super quickly.
yeah, that's true here. And got to talk about the roster too here because like when Tom and I spoke a few weeks ago, the whole idea is okay, like the core is set. Don't do anything drastic here. Maybe build your bench out.
How stupid are we, huh?
Tom's like, okay, let's say talk to Tibbs, find guys Tibbs will even play off the bench. Now Tibbs is gone here. Now we're hearing rumors swirling that, like if Giannis willing to come here, they're willing to try and get in the ring. We hear that like they're like, trying to get connected on some big guys. They're on a bunch of smaller guys. We've heard like that Kevin Durant wanted to come and they don't want Kevin Durant. So like I don't know what to believe what they actually want to do.
Yeah, it's for me. I try to ignore the media fodder just because like they're saying there's still a chance with Jason Kidd too. The New York media is absurd when it comes to the Knicks, especially. But I don't think if Giannis is entertaining it, obviously that's position A through Z. Like I don't care. We don't care about anything else. You go all in for him, but I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's happy there, and I don't think he's going to push it. And I think Milwaukee's happy to hold on to him. And then Kevin Durant, it's really just about the price.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Kevin Durant makes sense for this Knicks situation right now either. I mean, you're going to have to, even if it's, not close to what Phoenix gave up for him, at this point, he's still somebody you're going to have to give legitimate, assets to go get. And I just look at the Knicks and their problem is defense. Their problem was late game defense. Their situation of obviously you're going to have a different defensive scheme with whomever you bring in as head coach. But Kevin Durant at this point, I mean, Tom and I have talked about it. I mean, and I hate saying this because I think he's one of the top, best players in the history of the league. He's one of the best scorers in the history of the league. He's an easy 25, 30 points a night, but he hasn't impacted winning in a really long time, even with the stat sheet. And you're talking about a 37-year-old who's had an injury history. I think the Knicks are much better off. Like, hey, we have a really good team. Maybe you call Memphis about Jaren Jackson Jr. I do think if the reports that are true that came out about the Knicks front office saying it would be a dream pairing in the front court between him and Karl Anthony Towns. Memphis just traded Desmond Bain, so you could sniff around, we'll see what they're going to do. But I think the core is intact, and I think that now you just got to build out that bench, get a couple other guys you trust playing, who you can take off some stress from your big guys during the regular season, and a couple of names that you just feel better about playing in playoff games.
Yeah, I think one thing I'm watching here with the Knicks specifically is like I feel like that obviously like they like I've heard them link Al Horford points, like maybe like he comes off the
Mhm.
bench for them, but like I think the swing point for them is like does Mikal Bridges sign a contract extension? Because I think if he doesn't, and what you pay for, I think they try and turn something else. I think that's the pivot point for the whole offseason.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm in agreement with you there. And obviously, we're talking about Memphis. They were really interested in trying to get Mikal Bridges as well as OG Anunoby and a few others, and the Knicks offered better for Mikal as well as OG Anunoby. Um, but again, with Memphis making this move, we have to see if they're rebuilding or they're retooling. Because with making this move, they moved a guy that's getting off of a max deal that was already locked in. Not to mention, with Jackson, he didn't make third team All NBA as they chronicled on Simmons' podcast. So he's losing out on a year and like 150 million. So that deal looks a hell of a lot better to Memphis to hold on to him as the asset. So if they just turn around and decide to retool it, I wouldn't be shocked if he got, that 4 year extension that he's eligible for. And they just say, we have Ja, we have Triple J, and now we can go out and look at free agents like a Dorian Finney-Smith to be our wing guy on the cheap. As you know, so you have to think about that aspect. And then if that's the case for the Knicks, you're probably sticking around because, like Sean said, you still got to give something up for KD, and then you look into free agency.
Yeah.
A question I have for you guys regarding KD. So I thought, especially if the reports were true that the Knicks were heavily invested in trying to get him at the trade deadline, and that there were talks on both sides, and KD said he wanted to go there. Do you think that Dolan is playing a role here as far as not wanting him? Because we got to remember 6 years ago when he picked the Nets, that was like he was written in the stars he was going to the Knicks. Like that was what everybody was saying. The Knicks positioned themselves with the cap space, and he
Sean,
chose the
as a
Nets.
Nets fan, has been dining off of that day
So
for 6 years now.
yeah, and I've been starving for years. But no, like I wonder if Dolan looks at him, it's like, oh, so now you remember, and all the shit Katie talked, and he's a shit talker, and like we kind of respect that from him. But he's saying the Knicks aren't cool, nobody wants to go to the Knicks. Like I'm sure Dolan was furious with that. Do you think now Dolan is playing a role in just looking at Katie's like, oh, so now you think we're cool? Now you want to come here just because we're a better team? No, screw off. We don't want you. Like, or do you think it's just simply a basketball decision?
I think there's a little bit of Dolan in there because I feel like he's got too big of an ego to not be involved in that. But I do think like as you said, basketball wise, I don't think it makes sense to bring 37-year-old Kevin Durant in here and say, oh, he's the final piece for what we
Well,
need.
it depends on the price. We have to see how the summer plays out because the Spurs have backed away a little bit. All reports are showing as well as Houston. So if there isn't a buyer for Kevin Durant, Phoenix may be desperate to appease their real guy, who is Devin Booker, and obviously he's friends with Cat. You look at maybe a straight up Cat trade, or a few other deals that the Knicks could offer, and maybe that's the best that they have available. But outside of that, I guess. Dolan, I wouldn't put anything past him for
Right.
being involved, but I also have to trust the Knicks front office, that being Leon Rose and a few others, because they've made all the right decisions, and I think that they can actually overrule him. And if that's the best decision and they make a really good deal, I think that Kevin Durant would be a Knick.
He's also eligible for a 2 year, $120 million extension, too,
Yeah, and
which
like,
he will sign when he gets traded.
well, I mean, like, if you believe the reports on Durant, I mean, he's there. There are teams he said like I will not sign the extension with, so you can send me there, but I'm not.
Minnesota.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot.
It's pretty cold up there. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
blame him.
yeah, we can circle back to Durant here, but I will say, final note of the Knicks here, like it's important to remember here that like it's hard to believe the rumor mill with them because like almost all their big moves of late have come when nobody sees it coming, and part
Right.
is because Leon Rhodes doesn't talk to the media, and he's
You
like,
got to take everything with a grain of salt that they say.
yeah, because remember, like nobody heard about the OG trade, nobody heard about the Mikal Bridges trade, nobody heard about the Cat trade, never heard about Tibbs being fired. Until I mean, Begley, I'll give credit had Tibbs, but nobody knew these things until like right before they happened.
No, they're super buttoned up and quiet. And like you said, they don't talk. So you really don't know what's going on with them until the move is done.
Yeah. Let's go to the Nets real quick here. And Sean, your guys are in same positions. They are like the one team in the league that has functional cap space. And like, my question to you is, what are they going to do with it?
Yeah, they could have as much as $100 million in cap space, depending on if they trade Nick Claxton, depending if they decide to re-sign their restricted free agents, Cam Thomas and Day'Ron Sharp. I think they're going to be a way station, and they're going to be the conduit to a lot of big trades that we see. They're going to be the third team involved in a lot of moves. You already saw a report that. In a hypothetical Minnesota Phoenix trade for Kevin Durant before KD said, I don't want to go there. The Nets were the third team in that trade where they were going to take back some contracts. So I think that they're going to predominantly use their cap space on that. The free agent market is not huge, and they're in an interesting spot from a timeline standpoint, too, is they could expedite this rebuild if they really want to. They look at an Eastern Conference that's not all that good. Do you put all your chips in for like a Jaylen Brown, if the Celtics even want to move him? But I could see them taking on Drew Holiday. I could see them taking on a Kristaps Porzingis, being that third team, or way station if they want even more picks or younger assets. You look at like a Jonathan Kuminga, potentially he could be somebody that they spend their money on. Naz Reid has been somebody that a lot of the Nets media has talked about as somebody they spend money on. I personally think that Nick Claxton's going to get traded. I think the Lakers make a ton of sense. He's the exact type of center that would work well with a Luka Doncic and a LeBron James. You're paying him $25 million a year for the next 2 years. He's a good player, but not worth that contract. So I think they're going to use their cap space as a way station to accrue more value. And I think that when you heard Sean Marks talk in his end of season press conference, it spoke volumes. They're only going to go and mortgage this current situation with all their draft picks and everything for a superstar that immediately puts you in position to win a championship. They are not going to go get somebody that makes them a 5 or 4 seed in the East. So I think that when you look at the blueprint in the NBA right now, you look at what the Thunder have done, you look at what some other teams have done, just build your team through the draft and make shrewd moves around the margins. I think the Nets are in that position.
Yeah, definitely interesting with the Nets situation there because like they are sort of like because the way the NBA is now, like a lot like nobody has cap room aside from Brooklyn here. So like they really can
Mhm.
like sort of like extract value out of it for teams needing to like clear money, get out of the aprons, like make room to maybe use their mid levels more efficiently. Like and like they basically feel like they're gonna hold like put their like kind of like put like you said park the cap space that way they can just kind of roll it next year and then like have it again when they're one step you're closer what they want to do.
Right before Tom jumps in, I wonder what you guys think. I think they're one of the most fascinating teams of the offseason, truly. Like, as the partner to some other large trades, what are they going to do with this cap space? Who are they going to target? Who do they look at offer sheets? Who do they just say, screw it, we'll pay this guy, more than he's worth because we have to use it somehow? I think they're one of the most, and there's more reports that they're going to try to consolidate a couple of their picks later in the first round, to move up into the lottery again and get 2 lottery picks this year. So I think that they're going to be one of the most fascinating teams of this offseason. I really do.
I couldn't agree with you more just because of the fact that they have so many directions that they could go in. Like if some of these deals happen, they're absolutely going to be one of the first teams called in order to balance salaries out, be somewhat of a way station. But if they don't, they're going to be right up there with a lot of this kind of boring free agent guys that they're going to be able to sign some of these Nas Reeds. You have an Almada coming off of restricted free agency in Memphis. Maybe they'll make him an offer. You mentioned a Jonathan Kuminga, hold the Heat's feet to the fire there, or excuse me, Golden State. Which did he get traded?
No, he's
No,
on
it was
Golden State. Yeah.
Wiggins. Wiggins got traded. Sorry, that was like 10 years ago at this point. But yeah, I think the Nets are going to do this smart just because I don't know. For your sake, let's just hope they don't make the mistake a third time now. Maybe a fourth time.
Yeah, every 10 years they seem to go in and move for this win now move. So I don't know. I just don't think that there's, other than Giannis, right? But I agree with what you
I
said
think you
earlier in
put
the pod,
Giannis to
Tom.
the side. Anywhere Giannis names, you do whatever you can to get him.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I think that they would hold all of their chips for a potential Giannis trade. That might not happen this summer, but it might happen around the trade deadline. It might happen around next summer. And we see with these teams, if you hit 2 players in the draft, I know they're drafting 8th, but if you either move 8 and another pick or two to get up to like in the top 5, or you use a couple picks in the back of the first round or another first round pick and try to go up maybe with a Nick Claxton and draft, two top 10 players this year, that could be one of the most exciting teams for superstars to target going forward, particularly because you're not going to be paying them that much. So obviously you have to hit in the draft. It's the most important thing. If you don't, then it doesn't matter. But I don't think that they're going to look at some of these other players and be like, "Yup, we need to become, a 6 seed this year." Like, I don't think, I know Simmons mentioned on his podcast, I don't think a John Morant trade makes any sense for the Nets. You're going to be paying him a fortune. He doesn't really make you that much better. Yeah, he'll sell some tickets and whatever, but I don't think that's where Sean Marks wants to go, particularly after the experience that he had a couple years ago.
All right, let's go to the draft here. The draft's coming up this week, and a couple of things here. Number one, in prospects of note that you're interested in here. I think obviously we know that the Flag and Harper are going 1-2. I think two things are fascinating me here. Is number one, the Ace Bailey thing, where it sounds
Mhm.
like every time somebody asks him to work out, he refuses. And like I know the Sixers try to bring him in, and like there are rumors he's trying to extract the promise to get picked there, and Philly wouldn't give it to him. So this Ace Bailey situation is very strange. What's going on? Because like he's the only U.S. based prospect who's not worked out on the team yet.
Do these promises carry any weight? Has a team ever reneged on a promise?
I'm not sure. I'm sure somewhere in history there has been.
Like
Yeah, I
I
have no
could
idea.
promise that I'll give Sean $1 million. That doesn't,
Yeah, I think
he's
it's
not getting it.
No,
more of an issue. I
I'm
think
not believing you either.
it's probably more of an issue of like you burn the agent might hold it against you in future business deals.
Well, yeah, and we also know how tentative the NBA teams are, where they say,
Yeah,
"Oh, you got to acquiesce to this guy because in free agency," and then no one ever signs with them. So, you're probably right.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think the Ace Bailey thing's fascinating, Mike. He could slide down a little bit. You look at him from a basketball fit, and I watched him a little bit at Rutgers. I didn't watch him a ton. Obviously, he didn't really impact winning. He's an intriguing prospect. His height has been something that's been talked about a lot. Is he 6'9"? Is he 6'10"? Is he 6'7"? What's his size really? What does he project to in the NBA? I think some of the teams he's not working out for make sense. Like I personally, I need to see Philly actually make that pick before I believe they're actually going to keep it. VJ Edgecombe, I think, has sprouted up board, so he makes the most sense, I think, there as the third player drafted. Um, Ace Bailey doesn't fit in Charlotte at all with that team. So I could understand him being like, I don't want to work out there because I don't want to play there. Like it doesn't make any sense for me to play on that team. So then it's like, does Utah take a swing? And then you're looking at New Orleans, you're looking at Washington, you're looking at Brooklyn. So I don't know. I would be. There's no way he falls out of the top 10, but I think he could find himself more in that 5 to 8 range.
I
yeah,
think he's a Brooklyn Net, to be honest with you.
I would
I'd
love
put money
that.
on it.
I'd love that.
yeah. I think the thing with him that's I think very strange that like he did not have that dynamic year, and there are more questions on him, and he's like sort of hoping his rep from like preseason is enough to carry him to the point where it's like, oh, like it was just a bad year at Rutgers. The 5-star talent is going to win out in the end. Whereas like
Mhm.
he's hoping like if I just be like toxic enough, I don't end up in one of the dumpster fires.
He needs structure. He needs to go to a place where there's good head coach, a plan in place for him to really, try to recoup some of that talent that clearly, you saw it in flashes. But I mean, that Rutgers situation was a dumpster fire.
Yeah, who are some prospects you guys keep your eye on in the draft that have your attention?
For me, outside of like we could talk about Cooper Flag and Harper till the cows come home, but I think everybody is. For me, in the top of the lottery, I really like Carter Bryant. I love him as a guy for the Nets. If they trade somehow back into the lottery, just 7 foot wingspan. This guy can jump out of the gym. I think he's going to increase his 3 point shooting and really be able to be a true 3 and D guy. And then the other guy, like for basically anybody, because I think he's going to be just a guy that plays in the NBA for 15 years as a center, and he's like 12 years old and just started playing basketball last year. Can somebody help me out with the pronunciation of the Duke
Malawak,
center?
Malawak,
Malawak.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be so good. I think he's what everybody wanted, like a loony to be.
Mm.
I know that's a deep cut pull, but I think if Looney was like an all-star type player and you times everything by like 10 on 2K where you put up the attributes, that's what this guy can be.
Yeah.
I love both of those guys. I'm also a huge Con guy. I think he wherever you put him in,
I
he's
wish
gonna.
he played at Duke longer so everybody could hate him because
I
he's
know.
like the next Duke hate guy, but it felt like he was there for 10 minutes.
And everybody hated Flag already. I think Con is going to step in and immediately help a team, and that shooting is real. He's going to immediately be a big time 3-point shooter. He's very sneaky athletic, and he's really good defensively, and he's just a winning player. Like I know that's just thrown around, but he's a winning player, man. Wherever he goes, I think he would be great in Utah. I think he would be great in New Orleans. He'd be great anywhere, but you definitely, I think after Harper, I think Edge comes the next. I mean, the athleticism is freaking ridiculous. He's shooting up draft boards. Same with Malawak. He's shooting up draft boards. Carter Bryant, Tom just gave you his profile. He's flying up draft boards as well. So there's a lot of enticing players in this draft. And then you look at like, deep cut for me is somebody like a Ryan Kalkbrenner, who's a real traditional center, who's going to probably be picked somewhere in that 25 to 35 range. He's a guy that I think if you have a late round pick, you definitely want to take a flyer on him. His 3-point shooting got better over his career at Creighton. He felt like he was there for 10 years, but he's a really good player and he's a dog defensively. More your traditional center, like I said, but you could be somebody like a Walker Kessler who, if you put him in the right situation, you play drop coverage. That's a guy who I think could have a good NBA career.
Yeah, I think a couple guys I'm watching in terms of the prospect front, like I think like on the Big Ten front, like from Illinois, Kasparis, Jonas, I feel
Hmm.
Oh, that was my next guy.
like
I think he's a Josh Giddey type player
yeah,
with a
he's a
better shot.
yeah, he's a kind of like if you could improve his 3-point shoot, you have a real fine on the 3 and D wing there, like in terms of like his size, his frame. I think like he's got the athleticism to be a guy who pick is taking late lotteries in rotation by the end of the season. And I think like I'm curious to see how some of these more experienced guys who like may not fit the typical NBA like measurables, but like have ton of experience and perform well in college, like your Nick Cliffords in Colorado States, your
Yeah.
Walter Clayton at Florida. I think like those kinds
Cedric
of guys,
Coward.
like yeah, those kinds of guys who like did not don't have the typical NBA measure of the college production. And now that as guys staying in school longer, like how teams adapt, start scouting these guys.
Well, you look at Tom's boy J Dub, right? I mean, you look at his career arc, and his college career was interesting, and then his final year, he turned himself into the 12th overall pick, and now he's the Scotty to SGA's MJ,
Heard it
as
on our
Tom
pod
said. We
first.
heard it on our pod first, as Tom takes the credit for that, rightfully so. I think somebody who's very interesting, and you hear a lot of mixed views on him. Some people think he's going to be a stud, and some people wonder whether he's big enough. But Jeremiah Fears is somebody who I've seen mocked as early as in the top 8. I've seen him mocked more down into the teens. Obviously, that first step is insane. Like he could
Yeah.
get right now in the NBA, he could get past anybody that he wants. But you wonder if the shot's going to be there. The shot really wasn't there this year for him. He missed some time, but he's a very intriguing prospect. And I also think Derek Queen is a really interesting prospect too. Is he big enough to be a center? He's got the 3-point shot. He's a super, super interesting player. We saw him at Maryland this year. I was a huge fan of him watching him during the season and then into March Madness. So I wonder, I think he has to go to the right kind of team. I think he needs to kind of like, have the opportunity to figure out what he's going to be in the league on a team that maybe won't win a ton of games. But I think Derek Queen and Jeremiah Fears are two guys where if you told me that their careers were long and prosperous and they were all stars, I would completely believe you. But if you also told me they never really worked out for the flaws that they have, I'd believe that too.
All right, let's go team wise. Which other teams are gonna be the biggest movers and shakers on draft night here? Because obviously you got a lot of ways to go. Like San Antonio having 2 and 14, the Nets with their 4 first-round picks, Houston getting a top 10 pick from the like through the Phoenix Brooklyn trade. There's a lot of options here in terms of teams that can be interesting in the draft on Thursday.
I think with the way this draft is set up and those teams that you chronicled with all these picks, and we already talked about it with the Nets. I mean, some of these teams have an opportunity with how deep this draft is and the talent to look at it and trade up for guys back into the lottery where it's like we have an opportunity here to pick somebody at, I don't know, 3 with the Sixers or somewhere in that draft that is a number 1 overall pick in like 7 out of 10 drafts. And I think that they're going to be able to take advantage of grabbing talent that wouldn't normally be there just because we have a bloated draft this season to where the 15th pick in most other years, like last year, is probably the number 3 pick.
Yeah.
Yep, I think San Antonio for sure, Brooklyn for sure. Philly's super interesting to see if they keep that pick and if they use it to actually draft a player or if they have a trade worked out with another team, for another star and possibly Paul George gets moved. I don't know. And then obviously, I think Boston's pretty interesting too because they're going to try to offload a Drew Holiday, maybe a Derek White, definitely a Kristaps Porzingis. Is there a team somewhere in that mix, towards the end of the lottery or in that, 16 to 25 range where the Celtics could say, we've identified a player and we would want that pick. So I think that they're going to try to move up. I think the Nets would love to get 2 picks in the lottery. There's no way, even from a roster standpoint, that they can make all of their picks. They also have pick 36 in the second round. So, yeah, San Antonio, Brooklyn, Philly, Boston, I think are the teams that are the most interesting.
Also about OKC, you're sitting there at
Of
15
course. Of
with like
course.
that pick, and like like they're gonna have some extensions to deal with. They have potential like Hartenstein opt out after next season. That playoffs that team obviously may not be able to accept in order to manage their cap. So this might be a spot where like they get like a sneaky good like big that they can redshirt for a year, and then like he's ready to take like Hartenstein's spot next year for much cheaper.
Yeah, they'll do something. I mean, they know what they're doing better
And they're
than
going to
just
do
about
something very
anybody.
smart.
Yep. So whoever they draft, they've earned the benefit of the doubt for sure.
Yeah, they're playing like 60 chess, and the rest of the league it's like barely he's playing checkers.
Yeah. And I think Houston is in that way too. I mean, they could continue to, I mean, depending on if they do go in for KD or if they make another kind of move, if they swing for a Jaylen Brown, they're super interesting too because they have a treasure trove of assets.
All right, let's go to the trade market here. Like first up, reaction to this Desmond Bain trade, which like was a like I think probably like one of the first real shams bombs of the of since his ESPN move.
Yeah, for me, I think it works for both teams. I think it feels like a bit of an overpay for me just because of some of the picks that were put in there. The more you think about it, just because Desmond Bane's never made an all-star team and sometimes he can't stay healthy, but he is the perfect fit for that team. Solid defender and he hits everything he looks at, and that offense is going to really open up with him and he's like basically what they needed KCP to be is what he's almost guaranteed to be as long as he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I agree with everything Tom said right there. It's a great move for both teams. Orlando gets the shooting and the scoring that they desperately need to pair along Paolo and Franz. And then obviously you had to throw in some more picks just to offload the KCP contract onto Memphis. So I kind of understand, when you just look at the trade stuff, they gave up what? But it actually made sense because they were just so desperate to get off of
And
KCP's contract.
Memphis now has the flexibility, like I alluded to earlier, to either sign up Triple J to a long-term contract and hold on to that asset and retool, or just do a complete rebuild and blow it up.
Yeah, and it's funny now we're gonna live forever in this world where Desmond Bain and Mikal Bridges got 9 first-round picks and Luka Doncic got one.
Well, when you don't negotiate with anybody else, you're gonna
Yeah, I don't have much to say there. It's an embarrassment to basketball and professionalism in general. Just
professionalism in
world
general.
professionalism.
Yeah. And just imagine too, like the fact that like they got rewarded with the first overall pick after that nonsense
Oh,
is insane.
Yeah, I know, Mike. And you tried to play nice on that pod right after it happened. You said, "I don't believe it's a conspiracy." Come on. I mean, seriously, we don't have to play too nice here. Something's going on.
Yeah, like the conspiracy theorists will like never let this one go either.
It's too easy. It's too easy not to. You got to have some hints of truth and conspiracies for it to add up.
trade one of the biggest stars to the Lakers to be the next transition out of LeBron James so he can have the rest of his career with our most important team, and we will make sure that you get one of the most
Who just
important
sold for
prospects.
10 Billy, by the way, and I don't know if they would have sold for 10 Billy had Luca not been on that team already.
Great point. So yeah, I mean, listen, there's too much there. You could go down a lot of rabbit holes, but it really is just one of those like you get rewarded for making the worst trade in the history of the league. Like, come on.
Yeah. All right. A couple of big fish. Where does KD end up in your opinion?
I think inevitably San Antonio and then meet up at the table and find a resolution.
I think it's going to be Houston.
Okay. Do you think this turns to a bidding war that involves lottery picks during the draft?
I think that if
No.
I think that Phoenix is unfortunately, I said this at the top, they're staring right in the face of realizing that they're not going to
Phoenix
get
was so
anything
stupid that
close to
there's
what
not
they
going to be
thought.
another stupid team dumb enough to stoop to that level for once in the NBA.
San Antonio wants Giannis, and they are going to keep everything that they have just in case he decides, whether it be this summer, which we don't think is going to happen, whether it's at the trade deadline, whether it's next summer, they want Giannis. They're not going to give up picks, and I don't think there's going to be a bidding war at all. As a matter of fact, I think teams are starting to relinquish some of what they originally offered to Phoenix. So it's like Phoenix is looking around at Houston. Houston's like, we're not giving up two of our main players, and apparently Phoenix doesn't want Jalen Green, which I think is stupid because even if he's not a fit next to Booker, just get him as the asset and reroute him somewhere else. Somebody in the league would love to take Jalen Green, so you could do that if you get Jabari Smith and you get a couple of your picks back. The reason I say Houston is just get control of your own picks back. Some of them. You're not going to get all of them, and it doesn't even have to be number 10 this year. It could be picks down the road that you gave up, which would actually be more advantageous for the Suns to take on than the 10th pick this year because I think that they're kind of stuck in a situation this year where they're not going to be very good. But no, Mike, I don't think it's a bidding war at all. I think they're realizing that they're not going to get anything close and that these teams, like Tom said, are way too smart to trade all of this for a 37-year-old Kevin Durant.
Gotta
The
say,
classic reverse bidding war.
yeah. KD sure knows how to pick his spots.
Oh God. I mean Tom and I talked about this. Mike, what are your thoughts? Like, has there ever been a superstar in any sport that like when they retire, you're not going to really be able to associate them with one team?
Dave Winfield.
Maybe.
He's probably the closest.
Yeah, that's probably the closest. That's a good pull. But that's the crazy thing. Like you obviously don't go into Hall of Fame with a team in the NBA, but it's like it should be Oklahoma City, but he left them at the altar to go win championships against their biggest rival. It should be Golden State where he won his championships, but he forced his way out of there and didn't want to go back at the trade deadline. It could have been Brooklyn, but he said, "Get me out of here." And Phoenix, we thought was going to be his last stop, and now he's getting himself out of there. So it's like this guy doesn't really have a home.
Yeah, at some
Maybe
point,
it'll be in that new league they're talking about.
There you go.
it could be like at this point though, like you start to wonder, like, is he the problem? Because like it took like him going to ride with Steph and KD and Draymond Green to win championships, and like when he's tried to be the lead banana, he has not been nearly successful in Brooklyn or Phoenix.
I wouldn't say, you can't put the blame 100% on him because everything's circumstantial, but like, I mean, it's like one of those
In bad
friends
sit-
you have.
He puts himself in bad situations.
Yeah, it's like one of those friends you have where they're always fighting with somebody, and it's like maybe you are the problem. You know?
Yeah, the drama follows you around for sure. Like, you go to the Nets and you sign as a free agent, so you didn't have to upset the apple cart there. But it's like if you're forcing your way out of Brooklyn and you're telling them that the only team you're going to go to is Phoenix, and Phoenix has to give up Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and all of these other assets, it's like you realize that you are not joining that team that's already in place. They have to get rid of a lot to bring you in. Like, I don't know how he doesn't see that. So, and even in this case, like we're talking how it's not going to be a bidding war. They're not going to get what they want for him, but it's like, you're still going to give up a decent amount to get Kevin Durant. Like, so you're whatever team you go to, it's like, hey, let's use the Knicks as the example, right? If you went to the Knicks, it's like, okay, well, one of Towns or Anunoby's gone. So you're
Yes.
shaking up that team. And then it's like, okay, and then you're pulling other assets. If you go to San Antonio, Vassell, Keldon Johnson, maybe Castle are gone. So it's like you're not those are important players to that team. So he's expensive. Even at this stage of his career, it's an expensive price to pay for Kevin Durant. I don't know how he doesn't see that. And he absolutely is the problem. I mean, he has not impacted winning and winning championships in 7 years, 8 years. That's crazy.
Yeah, you think about it, like this is sort of like the new age, like Carmelo not waiting to sign with the Knicks and insisting he went there early. That's the new age, like KD thing.
Fair.
Yeah.
Because
Well, the
like
Knicks had to do that because he threatened to go to the Nets, which he was never going to do because they
yeah,
put him in New Jersey. He didn't want to go there.
yeah, he called their bluff.
Right.
Yeah. And like KD, whether it's, saying Kyrie Irving's the perfect wingman for me, or I'm gonna fire the coach because I don't like what Kenny Atkinson's telling me, and I go to Phoenix. Oh, we need Bradley Beal, and he doesn't fit the roster. Like a lot of that stuff.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, he's been one of the worst basketball management people. And that's why players don't make good executives or good owners. They
Yeah,
don't know what they're doing.
yeah, it is, and for sure, another situation here. Giannis, does he move now or does he stay?
I think he stays, Sean alluded to earlier, at least until the All-Star break, and then we'll see how Milwaukee played in the first half of the regular season. I know Dame's going to be out, but you still have Giannis in a wide open Eastern Conference. So I think he's at least on this team until I guess February the All-Star break is.
Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, I think he's staying. You're already hearing reports come out of Milwaukee that they're looking at how to build their roster around him. And
I mean, look up and down the conference. Like we're talking about Orlando as an Eastern Conference Finals threat now.
oh
So
yeah,
it's wide open.
you're a playoff team and probably a top five seed with him, even with the rest of the team being kind of, not great. But yeah, I think for him, you look at Milwaukee and it's like, again, we go back to players not making the best decisions for the team. Like they really gave up everything they had for Drew Holiday, which you do 10 times out of 10 because you won a championship. But then you did it again for Dame, all to appease Giannis to try to make him stay. I think it would be pretty shady of Giannis to be like all of a sudden say, "Hey, thanks for just gutting your entire team for me to go get me a running mate piece." I think he wants to win there. I
It's
really
been
do.
done before a lot.
It's been done before a lot, but
LeBron
not.
left many a team in ruins, and I know it
Yeah,
wasn't, he
but
left in free
Europeans
agency, but
Europeans haven't, and Giannis doesn't seem like he's that guy. Doesn't mean he won't be, but what's interesting is everybody's talking about, and Mike, I wonder what your thoughts are, and Tom as well. I'm thinking like everybody's making it like, well, Giannis has to make this trade demand to Milwaukee. If I'm Milwaukee, I'm looking at it like it might just make sense to trade him. Like even if he doesn't tell us he needs to be gone, like we're staring at a situation where we have no draft picks till 2031. We have an old roster. Or is Giannis just that important to that city, to that organization? And it's like, hey, you know what? We may not win another championship, but we just can't lose this guy. I don't know. But if from a basketball standpoint, from a business standpoint of trying to make my roster better, I hold him to the highest bidder.
I
I
agree with you on that. I think it's a small market, and
I
if he
know.
wants to stay, he's going to stay.
And this is an organization that lost Kareem, right? They lost Oscar
Exactly.
Robertson. So yeah.
yeah. Like he got a title with them. Like I think they want to build a statue. I think they'd rather not have
Hmm.
like Giannis spends 15 years in Milwaukee and 3 years in San Antonio. I think they'd rather not do that.
Yeah. I
Uh,
get it.
yeah. All right. Any other big names you're gonna be dealt? It feels like you guys are on the Celtic bandwagon, like watching like as they try and trim that tax bill, like get rid of some of those guys.
Yeah, how big are we talking? Because it could be Brown, but I highly doubt it. But I don't think Holiday's on this team. I think Horford's a free agent. He's definitely not on this team, and then Porzingis as well.
Yeah.
Yep. Boston for sure. Memphis, we talked about them earlier. I want to see if they are, retooling and they want this core intact, or if they do make Triple J available, do they look at Ja and maybe move him? Miami's interesting. They're always lurking. Pat Riley's always lurking, trying to find somebody. Golden State's always, very aggressive. So Those are teams. As far as players, I think that the Lakers are going to be able to go get a center. I think Nick Claxton or Walker Kessler makes sense for them. I don't think they're going to go bargain basement shopping for like a Brook Lopez or Clint Capella at this point. Like I think they want somebody who is a lot more effective, and we see the prototype type center that is successful with Luka.
Okay, let's wrap up two other things here. Free agency, like I'll just put out here, like NBA free agency is dead because nobody actually gets the free agency anymore is important. It's either the stars sign extensions, and then you're looking here and like, okay, do we overpay this guy who's kind of good? Maybe he has another gear in him, and what do we pay him second star money? Like you have, I might find on the mid level exception, and now like it feels like the market, like apart from like Miles Turner, there's like nothing out there like it really moves the needle for your team that much.
Yeah, I agree. All the research I did, it's like the list of the top free agents are all stupid, where it's like LeBron or stuff like that, where it's like, I guess technically they're free agents, but we all know they're going back. And I think Turner's going to end up re-signing after this finals run as well. But as for interesting guys, I think Finney Smith is an interesting guy. Malik Beasley, was this just a hot year, or is he going to continue to shoot like Steph and play pretty good defense from the perimeter? Naz Reid, I think, is one of the prizes of this class, and then Nikhil Alexander Walker as well.
Yeah, all those names are ones to look for. It's not a great free agent class. That's why this summer is going to be known as the summer for trades. Teams are positioning themselves cap space wise, or they're going to try to for players that they're importing via trade, not via free agency. So I think you're looking at the Knicks. It's like how do we make our bench better? Some of these other teams that are a little bit more financially
The Knicks
handicapped.
are going to have a point guard on their bench that is not campaign. And Mike, you and I talked about Chris Paul. I think it could be either Chris Paul, Schroeder, who killed them in the playoffs, or Tyus Jones.
I think the Chris Paul thing, the more it's from what I've been hearing, it sounds like he wants more money than Knicks will be able to allocate his way.
It's
There's
interesting.
another guy who I think could get a lot of money somewhere is like a Ty Jerome.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I
Yeah.
think he's going to get paid, man. He played so well coming off the bench. I mean, he was in the tops and six man of the year. Really good 3-and-D guy.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like you're looking at like, like does Julius Randle opt into his deal? Does he like what do the Bulls do with Josh Giddey? Like Kaminga, I know there's a possibly he could get moved, but like there's not a ton in terms of like that's a perfectly why I think Brooklyn's going to be a waste. It's not really anybody out there who's gonna like significantly enhance their roster like going forward.
Yeah, I think a lot of these guys are just going to end up back where they were, and it's just going to be like a, hey, there's no better asset, there's no better money out there, and there's no better assets out there for us. So just come back.
Yeah, and also keeping your guys. You look at a Kaminga, and we know it's kind of been a weird relationship between him and Steve Kerr out in Golden State, but he's a restricted free agent. It makes more sense for them to just keep him and retain the asset than it does to just let him go.
Yeah, I think like I feel like Kaminga is a guy who will get like signed and traded somewhere and do better somewhere else because like he doesn't fit what they like to do.
Teams
Brooklyn,
have no idea what he is. That's the problem. Like, his athleticism is very interesting, but it's like, you know, the Golden State's had a lot of opportunities to
he's
play him and trust him, and they haven't.
is actually he's just a better version or a more talented version of Wiggins, where it's like
Yeah.
he's so inconsistent, but it's he in these spurts he just shows like this top five talent, but then it literally comes once a month for a 3 minute span.
A lot of lapses defensively, too, which drives Kerr nuts.
No brain there, yeah.
Mhm.
All right, let's wrap up with two like miscellaneous finals things I want to talk about here. Like number one, your thoughts on Stephen A. Smith getting busted like playing solitaire on his phone during game action.
I have Stephen A. Smith fatigue. I think I've gotten to the point now where ESPN loves to do this, where they're like the radio back in the day, where they just, oh, it's a hot song. Let's just play the hits over and over and over. And it's just like, we're going to put Stephen A. Smith on Sports Center. Stephen A. Smith's doing soccer now. Adam Schefter's reporting on fucking golf. I saw. Like, I'm just tired of them. Can we get some new faces in there? Can we talk about sports? Like, this person doesn't have to be a personality.
If
Sorry.
this was anybody else, they would have been fired. But it's like part of Stephen A's thing where it's like, I can multitask. If you don't like it, you can kiss my ass. And it's just like, You're being paid $25 million a year. He walks into the games as if he's on the team. Like they
I'm
show the
fatigued.
tunnel, they show the tunnel shots of him walking in like he's on the goddamn team. I can't stand Stephen A. I can't stand First Take. I think it is the worst thing that's happened to media. I hear it on some of the New York radio stations. Like they just hire fans now and they just put people in these chairs to talk sports that have no objectivity and no understanding of what they're talking about. Like there was a whole thing about why are the finals down? Why are the ratings down? And Stephen A was talking about in the middle of the finals, there was a hit on First Take saying how Giannis is an underachiever if he doesn't win another championship. And it's like, how in God's name can you say that? Like that, do you look at the situation and then it's like he's going to critique him if he forces his way out. So I can't stand Stephen A. It was so stupid, and he acted exactly how I thought he would.
Yeah, it's just wild. As you were saying correctly, like anybody else in that network gets caught doing that, like they get fired.
On any other network. Like, could you imagine like in any other network for the finals? Like, if you had like John Smoltz, who none of us like, I don't think, on baseball, just being like, "Oh yeah, it's the World Series. Yeah, I'm playing solitaire. I'm good." It's like you immediately discredit yourself for anything that you have to say because you're not even paying attention.
Yeah, it's insane here. And any other any thoughts here? Like my last point here, like on the controversy about like no trophy on the court, whereas like we can, turn the like the color, like we paint the court rainbow for the NBA Cup, but we can't put the finals trophy on the floor, and we're doing digital trophies and putting YouTube ads all over the floor.
Listen, it's for me, it's just I said it on our pod. It's gluttonous, and I'm not surprised by it, and it's disgusting. We've sterilized and corporatized everything. But shit, man, you're gonna put this pod out. We're gonna do another one right after this, and we're gonna keep watching. So they're just gonna keep shoving it down our throats. I think it's disgusting. It's gluttony.
I got nothing else to add. Tom's been on the gluttony train now for a week. He's tired of the corporatization of everything. Like it sucks. And again, like you look at like those Lakers Celtics finals from like 2008, 2010 with the trophy in the middle of the floor. Like that's awesome. But
I just
like
think of like '04 Pistons, like with the
yeah,
big
yeah.
trophy, and it's
Yeah.
like that this is the finals. Where now it's like I just feel like I'm watching it. I don't know when the commercials stop and sometimes when the game starts until I hear a whistle for a foul or something.
It's just a giant advertisement for YouTube TV. So they're making the money. So good for them. But yeah, I try not to get too caught up in that. It's like when, the Nike bought the MLB uniforms and put the Nike swoosh on. And then it's like all the teams have patches now. Everybody lost their minds. I don't even think about it at this point. It's like all these teams, all these leagues are doing the same thing. So it
I
is what it
mean,
is.
I know that there's like some sort of complaint that there was like, oh, like the wording is like slippery or whatever, but like I mean, you've seen some of like the classic guys. I mean, like this is like for the 92 finals. I'm showing the YouTube version here. Like this like hits so much harder
I
than
love
Oh
it.
yeah. I
you
mean, but the
yeah.
thing is, they don't even have it like, okay, fine, you don't want it on the court. They don't even have it on the baseline. Like I'm looking at the baselines where players are not usually don't go in spots and they have shit there all the time. They have advertisements there. You can't put the trophy there. It's disgusting. It truly is like we've gone too far. It's everything feels like I'm being sold something. I don't know when I'm being told the truth. I got to get my aluminum foil hat on.
I mean, like again, like we the NBA Cup, we changed the whole floor for it. We put the
I
NBA
know,
logo
and
on there.
Which is also ridiculous. And they wear these crazy uniforms. Nobody knows who's playing. Like you really have to you have to know it's your team if you're turning it on because you have no idea who's
for
playing.
me, and this is the same thing with some of the City Connect jerseys in the MLB. Like I don't think the Red Sox should have it or certain teams that have like a pastime. But for me, it just feels like they're like Live Golf or like you name another league, any of those football leagues that tried to start up where it's like they're doing gimmicks. It's like, guys, you actually have a history here. The gimmicks are for leagues that don't have a history. Like,
Mhm.
can we just enjoy the sport? Because this is when shit starts to get ruined.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is it that hard to put the trophy on the floor? Because like you're like it's you can't tell when you're watching the finals that this is the finals.
You know what's the worst about that too, Mike? To your point about the Emirates Cup games, they call them now. There is a trophy on the middle of the floor at center
And
court
it's the
there.
cup,
Yeah, it's the freaking
the
cup
goddamn cup.
because they're trying to make it seem important. So now you have the most important games of your entire season, and you're not dressing it up as all at all.
Yeah, I mean, like every other sport does it, the NBA doesn't.
I think
Yeah.
we got to chalk it up to the people that make these decisions do not actually watch nor care about any of
Hmm.
this.
I,
Agreed.
that sounds like a certain commissioner from a different sport.
Um,
Well,
what? There's a lot of sports out there.
I think you know which sport I'm talking about.
I sure do.
Yeah.
I definitely do, but I'm looking at multiple commissioners from my perspective.
Yeah, well, some are better than others, but we'll leave it here. I thank you guys
It's
for
true.
coming on here. People want to know if you guys on on your pod, how can they do that? And follow on social.
Go ahead, Sean.
Make sure to stay tuned to the Sorry to Interrupt podcast. We're doing a lot of content. I actually got to do a Stanley Cup Finals with Will tonight. Follow us on Twitter at Sorry Sports, and then on TikTok and Instagram at Sorry_Sports as well.